yesterday and talk about things you might be interested in. I like the fact that this is a multimedia convention because I kind of do all sorts of different things across the media, and so I can talk about quite a few different things. Instead of my kind of headlong rush about Doctor Who yesterday, I think I used up all my standard anecdotes, so that's quite useful. God, I'm now at that point where I'm starting to ask conventional audiences, have you heard the one about the oven chips? It hasn't quite got to Nick Courtney's. You've all heard the eye patch thing by now. You really start to empathise with these actors who've been around for decades doing conventions and, you know, have said everything there is to say. You know, you listen to the DVD commentary with actors and, you know, you find them reaching for anything new. Poor old Terence Dick. A lot of it, actually, is because nobody asked Terence about his other stuff. You get him going about Raymond Chandler or Patrick O'Brien, and he'll have, or, you know, why he upset that Ursula Le Guin once. And Terence is a bit of an old-fashioned gent. He sort of said to Ursula Le Guin, well, he's feminist, is he? I don't understand it. Oh, okay. So, you know, it really comes down to people asking these old guys different questions. I mean, on the subject of Raymond Chandler, Terence could talk for hours and enthrall, but, you know, nobody asked him about that stuff. But it's one of the joys of my life that I get to meet Terence about once a month for lunch. And he you know, likes being, he's very much our hero. You know, when we went out for our big dinner recently, who authors he came along to the surprise of our three auction winner guests who'd, okay, I'm going back here. Mark Miller, the comics writer, has Crohn's disease, this awful stomach condition, and it's debilitating and awful. He's found a professor at the university who's doing actual research into a cure, and has decided in a very practical, Glaswegian way that the best thing to do about this condition is to raise funds very swiftly and pour it into the search for a cure rather than any kind of remedial work. So we set up a charity auction for a night out with me and Stephen Moffat, and as many of the other Who writers as we could get. And three wonderful Americans paid $2,000 fools for this privilege. And they were very, very sweet and lovely. But we got a whole bunch of Who writers and Terence Dicks, which our guests thought immediately meant that Terence was on the new series, which was kind of difficult to, you know, disabuse of. Anyway, it's one of the joys of my life to know the man whose books were read to me when I was ill by my dad, when I was a kid. And it's nice to have a guru, you know, it's nice to have somebody that we all look up to and kind of regard as the heart and soul of Doctor Who.
And we can all do these Terence impersonations.
I swear, at one point, if we get drunk enough, everybody around the table will be doing Terence at Terence.
How goofy about it? I don't know.
Terence is also married. I wanted him to talk about the one was a Wimbledon comment. But and you know, between him and John Kirby, I wonder what script meetings must have been like.
Our next show is the method of death.
Anyway, so I think everybody in the 70s in television had to have some kind of speech impediment. That's why they made I, Claudius. It was so obvious for them. Anyway, so things I want to talk about this morning. Anyway, let me take some questions. What sort of things, you know, I thought,
Robin Hood.
It's difficult.
As you may have noticed, people watched the first episode and came out with certain impressions. I have actually got back for a few later episodes, and it's beginning to warm up. But did it? How much of a brief did you have to start with?
I woke up in an alley. I have met some members of the general public who like Robin Hood. It's very difficult. I've said this on my blog. It's a metaphor I use about this stuff. You know, I was really, really emotionally part of that team and it's a team game. And I feel bad even having done that just now. It's like a discussion about the attractiveness of my wife is the metaphor I used online. You know, and my blog became this kind of centre of Robin Hood criticism, which I'm sure the rest of the production team did not look on too favourably. But we go, no, it's great, and everybody posting, oh, it's terrible. And I had a real heart search about this. It's very, very difficult. You know, we all play as hard as we can on the same side together, and it really annoys me when I'm doing this. It ill-behoves me to step in front of everybody else on that team and go, oh, it was bad, wasn't it? Because, you know, the others are all standing behind me silently. And, you know, they're my friends and we work together. So, if you'll allow me, I'd like to just go on past that.
I say, just get them to watch Father's Day on continuity, setup, and the general, as you said, jumble sale signs, and say, props person. Learn what medieval life is really like.
Say, when you got to do it, you're all hoping it's going to turn out the best. I mean, obviously when you get together, you put this thing together, you write, you arrange, you produce, you know, things don't, I mean, like I say, you could probably get better as time goes on. But, I mean, I don't think anybody said let's do a program that probably wasn't that popular to start off with. But it was, I hope, you know, and this is the problem, things, this is all down to risk really, isn't it?
I think the things, I never hype things for hype's sake.
Yeah.
But I did go on and on about how good it was going to be to many different audiences around the world, actually. And I get people going, well, he says Wisdom's good, you know, he said that's about Robin Hood. Because, you know, I really had genuine enthusiasm. And, you know, you're working with these people who are all energised and putting their whole lives and souls into it.
Yeah.
And I feel really bad for Dominic reading some of those reviews. And it's sort of, again, one assumes that historical realism is what they're after. I'm not sure that's the case.
They were doing a Knight's Tale.
Yeah, the Knight's Tale. I love the Knight's Tale. I think a Knight's Tale really walks that line, that very fine line, very well.
It certainly did, but it couldn't have crossed over too much though.
Well, I was going to say, but it is a tremendously fine line.
Yeah.
I mean, a Knight's Tale's balancing act is...
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about Knight's Tale is that they do the historical detail really well when they do it. You know, you learn everything about the proper rules of jousting. And, you know, anyway, I
think it goes back to what we were saying yesterday about Doctor Who, or whether it's shortlisted or a family thing, or what is the audience. And I think it's kind of that Saturday night slot is a crossover slot, it's an everybody slot, and it's going to be extremely hard to get it to appeal to everybody.
It's got to be everybody.
And it's about, you know, people are going to have to bite the bullet and realise that quite possible. I think it's full of potential, you know, it can be good.
Yeah,
it's just
we still haven't heard.
Disappointments of kind of,
Yeah, we still haven't heard if we're going to be renewed for a second season. Who knows?
I think the Scottish show at the moment is the one that's Sinbad and Raw and things like that in scenery. They're better than, it's better than those.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to see it. But no, I'm especially. I'm always aware that these days, especially, you can't talk to an audience in isolation. I'm always thinking, what I say will end up on the internet. And then you can film. They are wonderful people. And in terms of historical accuracy, Jenny White, the script editor, went into reams and reams of historical detail. And I think it's a question of whether or not they thought that was the right thing to play on a Saturday night.
probably you're going to get sad people like us watching it.
Yeah.
But it's
I
I wouldn't call that sad.
That was in inverted commas.
I think it would have been more historically realistic if it was on Sundays. They do historical stuff on Sundays. They don't do historical stuff on Saturdays.
Robin had adventures on Sundays.
The Robin show was more or less in the same time slot on Saturday.
It was, but that was back in the 70s when...
80s.
I love that show. I love that show to pieces.
Absolutely brilliant.
But the Robin also had charisma. I don't find...
I think that might be a bit.
I don't think he does.
I think he's just great. Yeah, I think maybe we just get old.
If it had been Christopher Eccleston or Sean Copley, somebody who'd been a battle-hardened soldier, I'd thought it.
It's very believe he's been to the Crusades, that's for sure.
Now my mind is wondering is where it should go to support.
Marvel comics!
All I can say is I don't agree and I support my fellows on the show. But is just something I use in between sentences. That's it. But I tell you who I think is really well. Apart from everybody being generally good, I think Sam Trafford's putting in a disturbing job. And he runs like his granddad, which is great. The Gordon Kennedy, Little John. He's extracting tears, I think. It's. And Graham Harper is directing my episode 9, which I'm very pleased with. He's a very affable chap. I met him at the Cyberman 2-party premiere, and he really wears his greatness very lightly. And he was, still knocking around British series television before Russell sorted him out and said he wanted to come back to Doctor Who. And now he's going to be doing everything. I think you'll see Graham now doing state of plays and things like that. I think that would be work really well. My episode 9 is co-written with Robin Hood in many ways. We only had 4 weeks. They waited a long time to decide whether or not they were going to recommission me later in the show. And me and Jenny White just hacked something out really quickly. It's 2 plots basically that only, glance against each other. Mine is Much gets everything he's ever wanted, and is given the Oldham of Bonchurch. He gets to see what life as an earl is like. And the other plot is a Marion plot, and basically Jenny wrote that. I asked it to be a co-credit, but I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to go out just as me, because script editors don't get recognition for this sort of thing. But I think it's going to be a jolly good script, and I think she deserves credit for it. I'm not trying to distance myself from it and say, it's not my entire responsibility. No, I'm not. I just have a sarcastic tone of voice.
You're wanting somebody else to do something else as well to be sharing with them.
Absolutely. Basically, I'll take the credit for the Much plot, and she gets the credit for the Marion plot.
Yeah.
But and that was just because we had no time. I haven't seen I haven't seen a cut of that yet. But I think it'll be a fine episode. I'm quite looking forward to it. And Graham will really inject something clearly. I wish I could say something about my Doctor Who, except I'm eagerly awaiting the results. We should have a read-through sometime next week, which would be wonderful. I should talk a bit about, if you'll allow me, about my novel. This is, I had 2 SF novels out there from Galance, and they didn't do very well. Part of it was, I think they're very kitchen sink novels. I think they're both kind of first novels. I threw everything I wanted to do in them, and so they don't really have 25 words or less. And so the sales, the way they're sold, the covers, I kind of set the bar quite high for a marketing department to market these. That they have to say about 5 different things in the covers and the advertising. So this was not good either way. This time round, it's very much a 25 words or less book, and my agent, I switched agents and got this really high profile prose agent. Similarly, I got a really kind of big TV agents, so they're kind of, it's like having two personal trainers. They fight. They don't want me working for each other. They want me to be, and it gets me, I guess, a lot of work because they're competing, and I didn't really foresee that aspect, but it means I'm running back and forth. Simon Cabinet, who's my literary agent, tremendous chap. When I was at Worldcon up in Glasgow, they had a real ale bar, and I was just coming off Lent, and I wasn't drinking until midnight at the end of Lent. And so I got through that and ran back to the. I'd been at a Gallant's lunch, a dinner in Glasgow, so I ran back to the hotel, thinking nobody will still be up. And there was Simon waiting in a pink cowboy hat with no, it doesn't go there. With 5 pints of real ale set up along the bar. And because I'd like a drink. And you may have noticed last night, really. Simon had his hand behind his back and said, "Make a wish." I said, "Oh, world peace." And he brought out a children's fairy wand and waved it in the air and hit a button and it went bling. And he said, "There we are, world peace." So I mentioned this on my blog a few weeks later, and I got a reply from somebody saying, I think I met him. I went up to him and said, "You're that agent that gets people 6-figure deals. Can you make me the next David Gemmell?" And he produced from behind his back this magic wand. He waved it in the air and said, "Oh dear, it seems to be broken." which is Simon all over. He's the life and soul of the party. I quite like him to sort of come with me wherever I go. Anyway, that's had a major effect on my life. And so I've been writing and refining what I talked a little about last night. I think it's going to be called Chalk, which Moffat gets, a laugh out of. That's Moffat's own TV comedy that he really dislikes now. But he says that, he hopes I have success with the same title. And it's, I call this an autobiographical fantasy novel. It's about the horrors of bullying with lots and lots of black magic. And it's about my own life as a kid in 1983-84. So there are pop music references throughout. It's kind of like a combination of now that's what I call graphic horror. And it spills out of a terrible mutilation, which I just got to the point of happening to me but didn't, and this is kind of what would have happened if it had, with lots of black magic. And I'm really proud of it, and I'm aiming to finish it by the end of this year, and actually have a novel I can, really get behind and feel some oomph about. Having said that, my second novel is just getting an American edition this year, British Summertime. So I'm going to have to go back to conventions and start saying how good that was again now, because otherwise it will be letting down my publisher in America at that basis. And there is lots of good stuff in there, I think. It's just kitchen sink. Anyway, so that's that. I've had questions about the stuff. I've been led by you guys today, really. Hello.
What people would like to be doing in 10 years' time? Would you like to be doing more television or more novels, or the same now?
Well, I have very specific thoughts about this. 2 years ago, New Year's Eve, having had a year of absolute nothing and getting down to poverty again, I decided I would set myself 3 goals. Own a new novel, own TV show, and an issue of an American comic book. And I'm pleased to say, well done. So that was, I actually have a list and I tick one off. But if I can't do it, I've decided I'm not going to write on other people's TV shows anymore apart from Doctor Who. Because Doctor Who will always be the exception. As long as Russell's there, I'll keep coming back if he wants me. But I just got fed up with being rewritten and fed up with having to conform to other people's formats. And I don't mind going through a little bit of poverty for that. I want to be a novelist and a comic book writer. I can do without the telly. If I get my own show, then I will absolutely love it and have a good time. But even at the end of that, I'll stop and go back to the books. I am a novelist. It's what I do. I mean, Moffat basically years ago, and Russell, way before new Doctor Who, realised that I was going to live a life of abject poverty unless I did some telling. So Russell introduced me to Sandy Hastings. We did a kids' show called Wavelength together. Moffat did, and Russell got me onto children's ward. And I think I kind of took a long diversion in terms of making some money, but away from what I really should be doing. And I'm 40 now, which is a good age for an author to start. It's 39, 40 next year. You never know. But anyway, so yes.
On our Armadacon forum, I put out a question to say, we're all science fiction fans or fantasy fans here. What book or set of books or authors actually got you into the genre in the first place?
Oh, there's loads. Well, there's.
Is there anything that stands out? For me, my generation, it's Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov.
Well, this was for me too, in a lot of ways. Back in the day, I was too scared to watch Doctor Who, and a friend of mine, way after other kids were watching it, the playground just made it sound so horrific. I turned over, I watched BBC2 very deliberately, instead of Doctor Who. It's like I wouldn't go off and do something else. It was really strange. I watched the other channel. I think it was Play Away. And then every now and then I would turn it over to Doctor Who to see what was happening and if it was that scary. And the first time I turned over, it was the Sultana removing his helmet. I thought, bloody hell! And then turned right back to PLAY. But the Seeds of Doom, the Brain of Morbius was the one I was like, I'm too old for this. I've got to make myself watch this as a rite of passage. And I was horrified that the Doctor didn't win at the end of part 1, and really surprised that he won at the end of part 4. And I thought, oh wow, I'm an adult now. But that's, I think in microcosm, that's what Doctor Who does. It gives a safe scare. It lets kids deal with monsters. It lets them, experience that Brothers Grimm nastiness in its safe way. And tone-wise, we have things called tone meetings at the BBC about Doctor Who. And they've developed a set of rules. I mean, you'll notice in Father's Day that little Mickey is unconcerned most of the time. He does not share in the pack. He's running along, he runs, but he's not screaming and shouting. It's because kids apparently find other kids being scared to be the most terrifying thing. They're all right with adults being ripped apart, but when it's other kids, they see that as a big signifier that things are really wrong. And it's really not about the real world, it's about what they're used to television telling them. And so Mickey goes through Father's Day with, not a care in the world, really. And also at the end of Father's Day, the Reapers there's a scene we wrote at the last minute of the Reapers actually vanishing. Because we thought, kids watching, they aren't going to follow this time paradox thing, I'm not sure I did. They're not going to follow it, and they want to know the monsters have gone away. So you never get a new episode ending with, but, our heroes don't see, but the hand is just rising out of the grave. It's not going to happen. We won't like that as adults, but kids really freaks them out. Everything's put back in the box. But that safe scare had a big effect on me. And I borrowed a friend's copy of Doctor Who and the Cave Monsters by Malcolm Hulke. And, having just seen Brain of Morbius, I thought that's entirely what he was and what he did. So I was kind of surprised that he was now wearing a t-shirt, living on Earth, and investigating caves. But I took that on board, and there was a huge conceptual leap for me. And the first bit of that book, the prologue, is about two people talking. It turns out they're not people. This is the prehistoric era, and they're Silurians, reptile man. And the end of that, when I realised they're not human, I kind of, whoa! This big Jaws-style zoom out. And that was that moment of what they call, conceptual, the thing about science fiction, where we realise suddenly we realise we're a long way from home, this is nothing like what we know, and we're giddy. And that's why we read SF at that moment. I remember that really clearly hitting me. And I think I was going to be a novelist from the moment I read that. And from then on, my brother, who's much, much older than me, had left in the loft boxes of SF novels, Biggles books, Eagle Annuals, and collections of Analog and Astounding. And I read all of which were far too old for me. Analog and Astounding, in ancient, yellowy, dust-smelling copies. And then from then to buying the Asimov collections, Heinlein, any Clark I could find, mostly in second-hand shops, in those wonderful purple classic editions. So yeah, that's kind of. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer.
No, that's fine.
But conceptual display. No. I'll think of this an hour after I've left the convention. Anyway, so yes. Anybody else?
You said yesterday about auditioning for Marvel.
Oh,
How do you do it?
It wasn't quite that. I did sort of.
How do they approach
Right,
you? How did they approach you?
Mark Miller got in touch via SFX. I think we both know people on SFX. And SFX emailed me saying, Mark Miller would like to talk to you. I went, ooh. And he said, I like the episode, do you want to work for Marvel? So I emailed back as fast as humanly possible. He may have got it before he said his, I don't know. And so he got me in touch with a chap called Ruan, who is their new talent coordinator, who sort of said, so what sort of things would you like to do? And we had a couple of conversations, and I sent him a list of mad ideas, including a couple I still really want to do. Fantastic Four versus the Beatles. But the Cab 4, Paul McCartney, kind of trying to woo Sue Storm, it would be fantastic. All set in the 60s, though. But anyway, that's why John the Scroll Beatle is in Wisdom, because I want to do a bit of Beatley stuff. In issue 2, there's a whole 2-page Richard Lester Beatles movie starring the Scrolls. About how they came to Earth, they wanted to take over the world, but John decided that Jerry and the friggin' pacemakers could take over the world. I want to do something more arty. And I was thinking that he really should call Scroll Paul again and, put the band back together and take over the world. But anyway, sorry, what was I talking about? Anyway, so Ruan looked at this list and said, well, of all the Marvel editors, Nick Lowe in the X-Men office seems to be the guy who deals with most of this stuff. So why don't we put you up with him? And Nick Lowe said, I've got this idea called MI13, and here's basically what I'd like to do, because we haven't used Pete Wisdom for a while, and do you know the character? And he sent me a pile of photocopies of Excalibur comics, mostly stuff I've read before, thank goodness. And, I just laughed at it, because I thought, Pete Wisdom, yeah, I'll do that. And his defining scene, since I know you know Excalibur, is where Pete's being, this sums up the character completely, even for those of you who don't know him. Pete, who is used to be a British intelligence officer, and he's a mutant. He's doing the cliched psychic interrogation scene, where a mutant who's a big psychic is sort of ripping secrets out of his mind. And the mutant is kind of delving into the depths of Pete's mind and going, ha-ha, you will tell me all your secrets. And he starts getting slowly freaked out by what Pete is like and what he's done, and starts going, oh, okay, I'm not sure I'll take all your secrets, but no, and it ends up freaking out, falling over, grabbing his head, going, no. I think, yeah, that's the keystone scene written by Warren Ellis for that character, so yeah, that's how it happened. And, yes, I think, there we are. Hey, how are we doing for time?
It's 10:30.
That's great. We're going to do 2 minutes silence at 11 o'clock. I'm told this is a tradition and it's really important to me as well. It's my dad is a veteran. He served in Burma, and he's the inspiration for a lot of Father's Day. Didn't recognise himself. Gave me a call the night it was on. I filled my flat with everybody I knew in my little town. So much so that we had people's arses sticking out the window, and which, the ladies next door in the little old people's home really appreciated. And that night I got calls from Terence Dix, and Russell and my dad. And Dad said, well, I thought it was all right, but I don't know about that Pete Tyler. I'm not sure, he doesn't seem like a very trustworthy chap. He didn't actually realise it was based on him until my brother found the script book with the introduction about that. And I hadn't been meaning to show that to Dad, because I thought, now he said that, I didn't want him to see that. But I think he was quietly chuffed that Christmas about that. But no, my dad had loads of businesses when I was growing up. He was always doing different jobs. He had the bowling trophies, the health drinks, the solar panels. And finally, though, he settled on the insurance business, and it did really, really well for him. He, passed it on to my brother, and it's now been sold on to another company, and so he's quite comfy. So he didn't end up being Pete Tyler. I have no idea what he made of the side bet too fast. I think after episode 1, he must have been quite traumatised.
Were you pleased that the Pete Tyler character was picked up again?
Definitely, absolutely. There's nothing more flattering than seeing your stuff, added to and rolled into other things. I was really pleased at the end of season 1 that what happened in Father's Day was referenced again. And I remember me and Moffat sitting together in the big cinema for the press preview of the two-parter at the end of season 1. And the words "the oncoming storm" on screen, which I used first in one of my Doctor Who novels, it just made us look at each other and go, I could leap up and down. And this happens quite a lot. At the first read-through of episode 2 in season 1, The End of the World, the 4 of us, other writers, were sat in a little line. And I'm not sure if it made it to screen, but in the script there was reference to all the space arcs have departed. And me, Gatiss, Moffat, and Rob just went, ooh! And the rest of the table just looked at us. Continuity references, that's what we love. But now tremendously flattering.
Do you find that the professional writer part of you and the devoted fanboy part of you clash?
Oh, yeah, very much so. I think the professional writer knows certain things are going to go certain ways, and then when I look at the rest of fandom, I realise I kind of agree with them about stuff as well. It's a constant double thing. I still like in some ways the thought that the Doctor's asexual, but in modern television he's not going to be. And I've written some of my best stuff with him not being. And in truth, if I had that put on me as a rule, I'd hate it. So one does find oneself thinking two opposing thoughts. And I think this is, in a lot of ways, I'm just writing about this in the book, actually, how fan cultures, to me, I mean this as one of a fan culture in a flattering way. Our culture's formed, I think, by the experience of being bullied at school. Many fans I know were. And I get the feeling that fan culture is the culture we would make for ourselves, the culture bullied children make for themselves. And I think that double thing, of finding yourself at odds with yourself, is sort of very much a product of that. It's a sort of evil twin book. It's a book about the one kid who gets to be free, who gets to do all the stuff he wants to do, and the other kid who is limited and confined by the experience of bullying. And the free kid gets to have horrible, horrible, bloodthirsty revenge. And I'm not trying to put back to the book I'm writing. What I mean to say is that I think the experience of double thing, of being two different people, in many ways that's kind of Russell's contribution. To say we are all still fans, and he is such a fanboy. And he keeps stopping himself from writing like a fan, and to write Doctor Who for the mainstream and not for us. And he keeps thus doing things that he himself would not necessarily do if he felt he was given if he was writing this for BBC 4 at 4 AM in the morning. I think the episode Love and Monsters really summed that up. And I love that episode because the Peter Kay with the Absorber lock. I love that episode because I think it's Russell with his serious drama voice on. And just for once, suddenly he doesn't care about the mainstream audience. And probably because it's got Peter Kay, so he assumed they would be showing up anyway. And at the end, that little speech about this extreme life we lead that's so different and so separated from the mainstream, it's not just, and it's dangerous and it's scary, it's not just different, it's better. My God, is that a radical thing to say? We're better than them. We're better than these millions that he's got to watch this show of his. You wouldn't get that in Veronica Mars. Well, you probably would. But no, he astonishes me sometimes. And him getting flack for making it too populist. And the fan response, especially to that episode, being, oh, it's just a bit of silly fluff. Tush. I mean, there are writers he employs who are not fans, who are just good TV writers. Stephen Greenhorn on the new show has written an excellent episode. Wrote Wide Sargasso Sea, not a fan, came along and it turned out Torrance had written loads of books of his childhood as well, so he had a big fun about it. I assumed he would be kind of distant to, well, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing here. He asked me, do you think Torrance would mind if I talked to him? So everybody's got a panic shrinking. I'm sorry, I'm just going round and round the houses. I hope I'm making some sense this morning. Well, I'm glad somebody is.
It's interesting what you're saying about bullying, because you say, I don't know anything else, but I always felt in my life slightly outside the line and I never quite fit in. And then, like I say, find something of interest, or to me, classic Star Trek mask growing up in the 60s and the 70s, and being horribly inspired by Dr. McCoy. I want to say Christine Chaplin, but I wasn't going to apply for a vocal, which actually, funny enough, led to my career.
So you're a medical person?
Yeah, I'm a nurse. But also being wonderfully inspired. I mean, there's other things that come on. We all like different shows and like different things. I tend to be more television and film rather than books. Although, I mean, I have to say I'm woefully illiterate when it comes to SF fiction rather than my acrobat. But when you look at all of us in the room, there is this commonality in all of us. The outside world calls freak geeks and anoraks. Well, now in my 40s, I'm proud to be a freak geek and an anorak.
It's
It's
turning that into opera, isn't it? I'm not quite sure if I mean opera or opera.
Where else in any genre would you get killed or whacked?
Absolutely. But I think that's the defining thing about fandoms. We are proud of it. We've all this stuff we were told not to do is the best stuff. And you like Russell T Davies doesn't have any experience of bullying, being a Doctor Who fan gay man in the North. Anyway.
For me, one of Russell's biggest fanboy writings of the first series was near to the end of Baz Wolf, where I think it was the Dalek Tempo was kidnapped, and that was being portrayed on a kind of big screen, and some of the effects in the ship and that effects on the big screen, that was all seen in the comics about 10 to 20 years ago. And I thought to myself, that's Russell wanting to put that on the screen, and he's finally got the budget to do so.
Absolutely. There's millions of Daleks in space. You just sort of, oh yes. And Christopher Eccleston saving that up for the whole season. Rose, I'm coming to get you. Yeah. Just whoop. Because
and also I'm going to kill every last damn sticking in the galaxy. That was Absalom Guy.
Yes. But 12 episodes of restraint, being afraid to act, that's what you get as the payoff for that.
I was going to say, with the bullying, what I find now is people who are in school are saying, so Doctor Who last night, damn I loved that as a child. I thought, no you never, you
They used to watch it, they just refused to admit that they watched it.
Very positive.
Yeah. And what I always say is, oh, did you like the trash shakes? What's a trash shake there? Go on.
Do I get a worrying impression that nowadays kids who grow up to be people like us, the people who are just a bit
outside the mainstream be different is they start to put labels on them and call them mildly autistic and things.
Yeah.
Send them for treatment. I would say it's, well, I think that was about to march off to the psychiatrist as well, wasn't that? But actually, I don't know whether I'm correct in saying this, but I'm beginning to find fantasy and SF, I don't want to use those horrible words, but becoming a bit more mainstream, people are a little bit more accepting of it.
Yeah, just
probably because we now have the technology. I mean, all right, we're in the 21st century, not where until the SpaceX are not living on cloud-based, but it's interesting now that I don't know about but I'm actually old enough now to be cool. Cool in the way that you couldn't be in the first wave round.
Yeah.
You know?
I think New Doctor Who and Galactica in the States contribute. And the fact, I remember they called the Lord of the Rings Oscar night, where there weren't that many.
Yeah.
And different presenters all going, this is a bit geeky. but Jackson's refusal, Jackson showing up at that in a debilitated tuxedo, just saying, I'm not one of you. Fantastic.
And you still get the sort of media stereotype, sort of geeky and rather than no life.
Well, I think it's, there's a fear reflex there as well. I mean, since, computer-wise geeks took over the world, it's sort of like the roles have been reversed a little, and we should be kind to them now. But, what's really interesting is sort of, there's a debate in print SF fandom raging at the moment about literary books that are SF that refuse to call themselves SF.
Yes.
But I have some sympathy with some of that. I mean, for a start, genres are genres because they don't sell as much as mainstream fiction. And if you're Margaret Atwood and you're used to selling that much, you really don't want SF put on the back of your next book and lose 3/4 of your readers overnight. And there's a big impetus not to lose sales. And also, I read The Road by Cormac McCarthy, which is a father and son, this is out now, it's a father and son crossing post-apocalyptic America, and it's just their conversations, there's nothing more in the book. We learn nothing about the reasons for the apocalypse. And at one point they go to a field of corn and touch it and it disintegrates into ashes. And I don't know what any apocalypse that might cause that. It's a literary novel. There's a picture of some trees on the front. The words post-apocalyptic do not enter into that blurb there anywhere. It's not an SF novel. But I would say that if the point of SF is to examine scientific tropes and the reasons things happen, that just as easily been the Black Death. In certain ways it's not an SF novel because he doesn't care about what happened around it. Now I know that there are novels from within the SF tradition that do exactly that. Ballard. But Ballard is also somebody who sits either side of it. I don't think we should pillory people for wanting... I think it's a sign of insecurity in our little circle of covered wagons that, people who write The Children of Men aren't in here. I mean, it wouldn't make any difference to our circle of covered wagons if Margaret Atwood was knocking on the door saying, "Let me in, I am a science fiction writer too." I think it's a sign of insecurity on our part in a lot of ways. And I'd like myself to be able to be free to be able to write literary fiction, SF, romance, historical, whatever I like, and not necessarily put those books labels. But anyway.
It's the marketing.
Yeah, very much so.
I was saying yesterday about how things are marketed, and I missed the point.
Well, Susanna Clark, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I really adore her. She's so sweet. But wrote this book for 15 years, and big hit at the end of it, which is great. Doesn't say SF or fantasy on the back, mainstream fiction. But because she got out to the conventions and was already a part of SF, and kept saying this is a fantasy novel, but it's being sold as a literary novel, nobody says this about her. But if we got to talk to Margaret Atwood, she might be exactly the same.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that's the one first thing that Joy was doing the handmade and then seeing the film. And I think part of it, something like the technology, the future, I like looking at the human condition from the outside and taking it slightly out of the square. So I would be pressed with the spaceship, like again, Star Trek, my favourite characters have been Data or Neelix or something like that, or with Doctor Who himself, because, I mean, some of the cracking ones, the lovely tribute they did to Armadacon, some of the, I mean, particularly Agnes's lovely grin, you know, that lovely evil grin that he had.
Yeah.
We're going to do something, but let's put the human side of the skew in. That's something you forced it. And I think with this also, it's something that people can be hiding behind it, but there's also a very brutal way of looking at ourselves as well.
Oh, absolutely. That being Galactica, just recently, the fact that the humans are the suicide bombers.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's your conceptual shift. That's your kind of, you know, that's what makes Galactica an SS show really deeply. I mean, they don't do any of the surface SS tropes. They don't do technobabble. They use phones and jeeps and suits and recognisable things, and they don't try and tell us this is a space phone or a space tie.
Yeah.
But what they do is have cognitive estrangement. That's the phrase I was looking for. There we are. That sense of we're a long way from home. But how are we doing for time?
Yeah, about another 10 minutes before.
That's cool. Give me a shout a minute before.
Yeah.
I've never had to do the 2 minute silence in the middle of a panel before. I mean, they sometimes just happen, but...
About the science of science fiction and Doctor Who generally, I'm not too fussed about it being spot on accurate as long as it's fun and moves along, but sometimes I sort of get a bit of a sort of planning moment is that, hang on, how does this happen and does this... How much does it take to that sort of scientific accuracy?
I think in Doctor Who we really need often a line that says we do think there should be some reason this happens. And there's usually a line like that, but there sometimes is. I mean, it's... I don't know why we should need the Doctor saying, if I press this button, you see, it's because I know that what will happen next is, rather than him just not telling us that and pressing the button. I mean, the Christmas invasion is, you know, we had to assume that he had some knowledge of where he was and how that all that around him worked. But, you know, it's a question of, I do know that often the logical connections are there in Doctor Who scripts, but it's usually the first thing that goes because it usually stops the action dead and it doesn't contribute to the rolling along of things. And especially it doesn't contribute to the emotional connection between the audience and the show. I think we're still trying to figure out, all of us, not just in Doctor Who but in television, what the audience will bear in terms of science fiction and fantasy. You know, what turns them off, what brings them in. And it's possible we've sort of erred too far on one side. You know, it's always a question of, are the audience at this point going to think, oh, I missed something here, maybe it's something in a previous episode. I need to know something to get into this. I think I'll go make a cup of tea. Where do we lose them? I don't know.
Stuff's got to hang together to some extent. It doesn't have to be X equals Y, so blah, blah, blah. But just as long as there's some connection.
Yeah, some
and there's a backstory. I think people like backstories. They like to know context.
I'm a great fan of continuity. I mean, Wisdom is full of moral continuity. And I wasn't asked either way. You know, they didn't say stuff it before, they didn't say don't. But it's all continuity that's very much in the background. You can roll straight over it without noticing it. And I think that's the best sort, where there's something for long-term readers that reassures them this is a continuation of what you were reading. But at the same time, new readers don't go, I have no idea what's going on here, and obviously they're talking about stuff that wasn't here before, because that's a way to shrink an audience, it really is. And similarly in Doctor Who, I love his continuity reference. There are some screaming Russell T Davies continuity references next season. You are going to laugh out loud at a couple of points.
I think that's the magic of Captain Jack is it doesn't have a backstory.
No, absolutely.
Or is a huge bit of backstory missing that we're not going to know about.
Yeah.
The opposite of what I just said. But that's the mystery of Jack.
Yeah. But
as long as everything else hangs together, we can tolerate the mystery of Jack.
And also being signified as a mystery.
Yeah.
You know, we keep getting little signifiers saying this is a mystery, you don't have to worry about it. Like a couple of weeks ago on Battlestar Galactica, Baltar turned to the Cylon inside his head and said, you know, I still don't know exactly who you are or what you are or why you're there. And that really is just to say to the audience, you know, we haven't forgotten. It's cool. Anyway, anybody else?
Do you fancy getting back to writing a monthly column for SF Magazine?
I really enjoyed it. It's so hard. Matt Jones said about his DWM column, you have to have an epiphany every 4 weeks. I find writing a blog hard enough, but I don't have a schedule for that. I have a great deal of respect for Dave Langford, who's been doing this since issue 1. But even then you can tell when he's just reached into his box of stock things and said, oh, I'll write a column about cheese, the cheese insect. I always said to myself that I would have a spare column ready for a month where I had no thoughts. I had never really got to write one. I was always desperately getting there in the last 5 minutes. No, I really enjoyed that. I'm still very much in touch with the SFX guys and hang around with them, and you know, they have a lovely family feeling. It's a really nice magazine to be involved with.
And you said, before that Doctor Who, Robert Lilly's requirements. I read something with Blake 7 might be any ideas? That would be tremendous.
I have seen 3 different Blake 7 proposals, and they're all from different people. And I saw a script for one of them, which was excellent. But I think there's some doubt as to who owns the rights. I think there's a big row. Does anybody know anything about this?
The Nation Estate sold the rights, well, leased the rights in 2012 to a bunch of Muppets in America called Break 7 Enterprises, who seem to be big on press releases but don't actually do anything.
That's terrible.
I'd love to see that come back and treat the same Doctor Who as well, because this is the thing, it always, with Doctor Who, I must admit, it was some absolute dread, because as much as I had fun, I got as far as Tom Baker, that was it for me for a while. I grew up with lots of other things, I was, you know, it was what to do with the lifestyle I was in, the times and those I stopped enjoying it. So there was a little note of trepidation, but it always in some sense, it was wonderful. Let's take the levers off this. Let's just chuck the budget and do the best that we can. And it was an absolute. I was almost in tears with the first episode because this is what it could have been so long ago before it kind of because it did go through a bit of decline. And then
I love this decline.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
yeah. I mean the BBC kind of like gave up on it, and then all of a sudden, bang! And it was wonderful. And all the people were like, wow.
Well, no, it's because Russell refused to work for the BBC unless they gave him Doctor Who. And they didn't take him seriously. He turned down 4 or 5 things in a row saying, I won't do it unless you can. And when he turned down the Canterbury Tales, no, I won't do one of those unless you give me Doctor Who. And Mal Young, who I knew on Casualty, who was the head of drama then, had been trying to bring back Doctor Who for a decade, partly without telling anyone. But he was waiting for somebody who the BBC wanted enough to let them do anything. Because, you know, the stink of Doctor Who. You know, the love that dare not speak his name, everybody with their Buffy action figures hidden away in TV centre. And after a while you'd be talking and so they'd go, so you're a bit of a fan, are you? Your voice would differ. Yes, I am. And they'd say, look, and they'd bring out an angel figure. And meanwhile, over at LWT, where Julie Gardner worked, I'd go over to talk to her about something, and we'd spend the first half hour. We actually scheduled meetings so we could spend the first half hour talking about Last Night's Buffy. You know, she was head of drama over there. You know, there was a big difference there. And now, of course, everybody in the BBC is obliged to be into Doctor Who. You do get that kind of fake fan thing. They buy the action figures deliberately now.
All I can say is Michael Grimes.
I kind of think he was right. I would have.
Something on.
How much work will that?
I mean, he likes it now. He likes it now because it's good.
I think that's his son likes it.
Well, you know, you get the kids and everybody else will follow.
Must be a closet football fan, sounds like Shallow.
Sorry?
I only support my team because they're good.
Yeah, well, that's. But, you know, it's the TV executive only does support his team when they're good. and if they're good, it depends on the ratings. There's not a lot else happening there. How are we doing for time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. I was going to say, is this the national 2-minute silence? Oh, good. Right.
With the Blake 7, when they I'm sure it will be a when they remake that, they'd have to do the restart switch.
Yeah, they'd have to. I mean, well, where would you start for a continuation, honestly? And there isn't a big enough...
Major Dave on trying to recruit new young people.
that would be so seedy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Do you want to join the revolution? No, Grandpa, no. No, I kind of, Doctor Who has this, Blake 7 doesn't have the communal audience memory that Doctor Who did. I mean, Doctor Who's just been entered into the British Heritage 100. It's the only thing for the media in there. It's lovely.
Well, sure, because that program started on my third birthday. So it's been around all this shit.
Here we go. 1 minute. Okay, how are we going to do this precisely? Could you tell us a precise start for a countdown?
I don't know if I watch it right, but
Right.
let me do it.
So what time have you got?
Actually, maybe 3 minutes. 2 and a bit minutes to go.
Okay. Well, if you guys were the...
I'll give you a countdown.
That's cool. I'm not quite sure what to do about this.
Does anyone know the official...
You don't
talk.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. That was brilliant silence, wasn't it? But,
can you say the official We Will Remember speech?
I remember what they actually say.
Someone say that.
Caroline, do you remember
What?
what the correct words for It's not a prayer, is it? It's shown by with the soccer thing. Anyway, I'll keep talking about Blake 7 to that moment. It's,
I think Blake 7 would be very popular. I was a fan of it, but it was huge in numbers. It's got a massive base. Brilliant. I think the BBC
definitely out.
They have to restart it definitely.
That's the next leap. Is there an audience for a post-watershed?
Well, you see what they do with Battlestar. They do it similar to what they do with
I don't know what I'm talking about.
If you're going to re-image it, if you were going to totally re-image about day one Blake, who would you change?
Oh, you asked that when there's only a few seconds to go.
I'll come back. You've got 45 seconds to get started, and then you have 2 more minutes to come up with your finishing marks.
Sam!
For example, obviously you've got, sex change of characters in Battlestar Galactica. Are there any characters that would be more interesting?
I think Blake has to be young, funny, and interesting. I think he has to have at least as much passion as Avon does. He has to be the idealist, and he has to be loud and in your face. And Avon has to be his flinty opposite. That's one of the... Well, hey, I do like 2 minutes. It really does focus the mind. And it's wonderful that my dad gets 2 minutes of everybody in the country being silent for him. I love that. So, Avon. No, I do think you'd have to get some big, iconic characters. I mean, they are, in some ways, Robin Hood's merry men. They had Gan there to be Little John, they had the Little Thief. It's, and there is that, the Robin Hood characters are such a bunch of icons, and they inform so many other things, like the Magnificent Seven and Seven Samurai. You just have to take the best from that. I think Terry Nation, when he had his walking out of a meeting sudden idea, and came up with something as iconic as that really works because it was a very quick idea and sold itself very quickly. I think there's depth there. I'm not sure that the Murray Men in Space is a post-watershed idea. I mean, just because the BBC in the 70s were willing to do a family show that included so much violent death, I also wanted to talk about Super, my superhero show. May not happen. I was talking about this last night. They commissioned a script. I've just delivered what me and the script editor both together think is the best possible go at it. This is now going to my immediate boss, Diedrich Santa, who will give his thoughts, and then we'll do another little mix around, and then we'll put it to head of drama. The thing is, these days, Diedrich, kind of hangs out with the head of drama and is 2 rungs below her. So, we have some hopes for this. The rise of the American show Heroes has really scared us, because that's doing really well. It's a superhero show. I haven't seen it yet. And the BBC probably won't buy it. They're a little averse to buying imports. So they may still think they like a superhero show of their own, in which case we're in a really good position. It's full-on superheroes. There are costumes, secret identities, pulling off of glasses, pulling in of shirts. That's the stuff I really like playing with, the iconic stuff. And the end of the first episode is all of our 4 characters doing the sudden... and since they're all girls, that really works.
How's the nice costumes?
Let's see what we get there. I'm sure...
When you're designing the costumes, you've got to have Dave in mind.
We did want Terry Pratchett when he wrote a Coast Answer. I said, look, you must have known when you wrote it. I was going to do it. You wrote the stupid film. Can I ask one more question before I clear off? I'm not allowed to listen guests against the law. I never get to see the guests. It must be against the law. Okay. As the fan who's now living the dream, 2-part question. Have we done that? Is there a defining moment of that's what I want? You saw something or read something. That's what I want to do. And is there a defining moment of I'm living the dream?
Well, I've done the first bit, which I should talk about Doctor Who and the Cave Monsters and Analog. But I'm living the dream with seeing the TARDIS. I went along to the filming of the first 2 parts of Aliens in London, just to get a feel for what Chris and Billy were doing on set. And seeing the TARDIS sitting there in an ordinary suburban little square, and kids were sort of wandering around, still not knowing what it was. And it's so gorgeous to walk around the corner, and there it is. I went up and I touched it. And because it's such a long, drawn-out process and happens out of order, you have to really manufacture those moments to get your big memories, because otherwise it'll just slide past and you'll have suddenly gone from grass isn't greener to grass is greener without ever quite hopping over the fence. Oh, I like that one, I'll keep that. But no, I do feel very fortunate about this stuff and very lucky. And but the nice thing is the process does continue. Hopefully we'll now. Russell gave me a call after Darwin got the big, after Rose, the first episode, got the big ratings, because he'd already told me before the show went out, Paul, don't be too upset if by the time we get to episode 8, your episode, we're not on BBC One in prime time anymore. It won't be your fault, because everybody thought there was a chance this could stick. That we'd be pulled from the time slot. The night before, you could have got odds on Ant and Dec winning the ratings battle. Russell, in his wildest dreams, hoped for 6 million. 10 million changed everything. An earthquake across the BBC. They had no idea. They thought the family was dead. They had no idea there were families who wanted to sit down and watch, especially Doctor Who. So that's where Julie Gardner started to rise to power. That's where Doctor Who could have what budget it wanted when it wanted. And it meant we were still on when we got to episode 8 on Saturday night. That's why he put Dalek on there as episode 6, to at least keep it in the time slot for 6 weeks, because they'll wait for the Dalek. Anyway, he called me the day after Rose had been on air and those huge ratings had come in. And he said, that's done it now. In 40 years' time, somebody else will bring it back. And I feel that, that's the kind of timescale he works on. Also, there are young fans aborning now who will be creatives next time round. If we hang around long enough, we'll start to see fan fiction from these guys, and they won't make their own fanzines now, but perhaps web pages. And, oh, and I love the fan fiction. I love the live journal stuff. I love the female fan fiction. I love the fact that there's a female audience out there watching this, and that they're being creative and they're doing stuff, they're writing stuff.
There's some shows that really ask for Florian fan fiction, because that's also a great way to keep the show alive. I mean, there's a couple of shows that come out now on DVD that haven't around me, like Forever Like Beauty and the Beast is going to be released. The fan fiction, that's phenomenal. Everybody started reading Shakespeare. Everybody started reading Browning again.
Yeah.
Apart from them going, and it's the same with Doctor Who. I mean, we're the generation now that we produce children. We can say, this is what we like. And of course, what they're seeing, in some respects, is better because the gloves are off.
Absolutely. I mean, in the 15 years, what had in fan fiction became the New Adventures and Big Finish.
That's right.
And so many ideas for the new show taken from that 15 years. When the gloves were perfect off and the fans owned it, and injected back to revitalise it. I mean, God, the New Adventures. So much stuff that's just gone straight into the new show. I mean, there's a real continuing line. Roman Monroe's Survival, which could just about be done in the new series. It's not tremendously different. Through the last script of the old series, through the New Adventures into the new series, there's so many continuing threads. And, interesting. And fan fiction. I mean, I do think edited fan fiction is the way to go. I've just been advertising on my blog. There's a new Who fan fiction website where there will be editors, stories will be turned down, notes will be suggested. When I was writing fan fiction, back when I was writing fan fiction back in the day, these young kids don't know they're born now. When I was writing fan fiction back in the day, editors would edit you and turn you down. Now, too often, your fan fiction just gets launched on the web without anybody having looked at it. And I think it's really important for the next generation of Who writers, if they're going to come from the fandom, that they have a heart, that they have problems. And also, I want to make them suffer as I suffer. It's a cycle of abuse, that's what I'm here for. Oh yes, thank you for asking about my blog. It is Paul Cornell's House of Awkwardness. It's on the blog system, but if you look at Paul Cornell at all, you'll find it. And also, there you can get a special offer from Forbidden Planet to get all 6 issues of this for not very much. Tell me about it.
Bit of a bad question about the Bad Wolf thing going on in the first season of Doctor Who. Was that always there? Was it something that sort of came in as a season ago or left on?
I think it was always there. I saw it in the scripts I was reading either side of mine as I was writing mine, and asked Russell, do you want me to put in a Bad Wolf reference? Thinking he'd tell me what it was. And he said, oh yes. So I wrote the graffiti on the wall, hoping that would do, but apparently
If you go, the Bad Wolf graffiti that Rose sees in episode...
That's my name.
Yeah. 13. It's still there in that park in Cardiff. I'm sure the local blog reader will mention it up every so often.
What can I say? That's what Cardiff's like.
It sounds like Cardiff has embraced Doctor Who.
But I have a serious fat answer to that. Rose could well have kept on zapping her mind through time and rewriting it. But sorry, I love the fact that when Rose has becomes the persona of the whole of space and time. The whole of space and time is from the home counties, of course. And I don't want to say Dark Phoenix or anything. But, when I started doing Wisdom, Russell sent me an email that said, "Oh, I love Pete Wisdom, the sideburns. Never mind Captain Britain with his tight. I love the sideburns." But that's still on. But anyway, sorry, tight trousers. Anyway, that's the universal language for trousers. Sorry, was there something over there?
No, just say about Cardiff.
Oh yeah, Cardiff.
Oh,
all the taxi drivers. Oh, you were Dr.
It's amazing that it's taking up the whole area, not just Cardiff. So filming way out into the Welsh valleys as well. I mean,
there was that wonderful, not Dead Ringers, but the Now Show sketch with Christopher Eccleston going, I can go anywhere in this, I can go from Swansea to Cardiff.
Publicity shots for Series 3 were, well, they were taken in the car park of my university. You know, just look at the photographs back and say, yeah, I know that, that's Forest.
One of the most amazing things is how much the online fandom watches and, you know, knows what's going on. Me, Russell, Mark Gates, me, Russell, Mark Gates and Rob once shared a train journey to Cardiff together. And little did we know, as we talked about everything on that just behind us, it was a Doctor Who fan who was his printer. And the report I read on Outpost Gallifrey afterwards, unfortunately, I was Russell. So I think I recognise the other three, but they seem to be with Russell. He was a stocky chap, not like I But anyway, so, and well, just recently there's another scripter to reading a script in front of a Doctor Who fan who managed to film it with his mobile. Oh dear. So, you know, the level of secrecy now, it's you have to, you know, virtually get a retinal scan going.
Sit there behind the newspaper with the eyes
I mean, we've already arranged to meet up for filming this week.
Oh yes. One of the things I really like is that the guys doing the filming, if they're out in the open, there's still actually a really nice attitude to the fans who show up. Phil Collinson especially will tend to say, oh, come over here and have a look. And Phil's a lovely guy. Old-time fanboy again, member of, I think, Mr. Blackburn local group of Doctor Who Appreciation Society. And you know, he's you know, the crew tend to be really sweet towards fans. It's you know, and you know, if you're filming outside, to be honest, you can't say this is secret. You know, there's no way that that's.
It was amazing watching the filming of Rise of Cybermen and Age of Steel, because we were in one of our local pubs. We knew it was going to happen, but half the other locals didn't. And so when you just see Cybermen walking down just raising their eyes, let's put it that way.
That's the post-mortem scene waiting to happen. Oh, you're about to Doctor Who, aren't you? Oh, you're real. Because that's what people with Doctor Who should say. It's like something out of Doctor Who.
It's around 5 hours, that's about minutes worth of film.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things you go along and you're expecting the filming your episode to be just the most passionate, tremendous thing of your life. And for the first take it is, and for the second take, and just a bit for the third take, well, people are going to oh, this is dull. And it kind of, they have to do everything over and over so much. That's another reason that there's no place for a writer on set, because we can just get so bored so quickly. There's nothing for us to do, we have no input, and you can only watch interestedly the same thing over and over for so long. It's, albeit I did stay there for quite a while watching it over and over. But anyway, how does it do on Casualty with Doctor Who? How am I doing for time?
Just over 10 minutes.
Before the end, or you mean 10 minutes? Oh, lovely. And, oh, so is there anything else, or should I wrap up and wander? I mean, I've been wandering. Hello.
Sorry, have you listened to one of the audio, the Big Finish audio?
Oh yes, thank you for asking. I've got one coming out in, not sure when, January, February, spring. It's a chap called Mike Maddox and I wrote this together because I was looking for, well, originally Big Finish approached me to do one, and I got involved in writing the two-parter TV again, and my time got really limited. So a friend of mine called Mike Maddox, who's, he's a comic writer, he's won the Prix Julien, the big French comic award, and I worked out I wanted to do a Peter Davison and Nissa four-parter that was actually 4 one-episode stories. It's called Circular Time, Each episode is a different story, and they are, broadly speaking, alien planet, historical adventure, contemporary love story, and Vanessa. I got to write in This Is Sexy on audio. I got John Ainsworth, the director, phoning me up at the next morning going, well, Sarah was a little surprised, but she got through it. We've had some creaking of bedposts. And a really weird last episode, which does some continuity stuff. And I plotted out all 4 episodes. Well, the first one is a beat by beat. I wrote the plot, and Mike wrote the episode. The second one, I just had an idea, and Mike wrote the whole episode. And 3 and 4 are me writing the whole thing. And 3 is a cricket-based summer romance for Nissa, where the Doctor is busy playing cricket with this little team in Stockbridge from the comics, and trying to help them avoid relegation towards the end of the summer. And Nissa, feeling rather left out of it, is trying to write a book, and at the same time falls in love. So I was really pleased with that. It's a nice little story.
Yeah, it comes out in January.
Oh right, thank you. Look at that.
Yeah.
But it's got a great cast. There's some lovely big names in there. And I'm very, very proud of it. We also got to edit each other. I edited all Mike's stuff and he edited mine, so I'm kind of, trying to get another viewpoint and mix it up and get another voice in there. And I think I'm quite proud of it. Also, I wanted to write for Peter Davison because he was. My last one would be Colin Baker. I'm not sure I'll get there, but otherwise I would have. Well, assuming Tom will never do.